Today is our second lesson in our Measuring Circles unit, and it is actually the first lesson where we actually look at circles. So this lesson is called Exploring Circles. We're on a new standard, which the standard says we're going to be finding the area and circumference of a circle. That we're not going to do today, but this leads up to that standard, so I've chosen to highlight that standard. So we'll be exploring circles and what makes a circle today. First thing I want you to take a look at is this. How do you figure? Here are two figures. Figure C, which is not shown, figure C looks more like figure A than like figure B. I want you to think about what figure C might look like. There is no one right answer for this, so feel free to be creative, maybe think outside the box a little bit, and come up with a sketch of what you think figure C might look like. And you need to be able to justify or defend your reasoning, so you need to be able to explain why you think figure C looks more like figure A than like figure B. So please take a minute with your partner to discuss what that might look like and come up with a sketch. So pause the video and then come back. Alright, so you might have come up with a variety of things for figure C. One thing that you might have come up with is a shape kind of like this, where the edges are rounded, but other than the rounded edges, it pretty much looks kind of like a square with rounded edges. So maybe we took figure A and we just sort of rounded the edges a little bit like this. So that's one thing you might have come up with. You might have come up with something like this. Perhaps you came up with a diamond shape. The shape is long, just like B is long or tall, but it's more like A because it has 4 straight sides, all of which are equal. You may also have decided that you would just draw a circle, perhaps a circle that fits inside of A, something like this. And you might say, well, it's more like A than B because it's not long and stretched out, and if we draw maybe a point in the middle, it's the same distance to all of the edges of the shape. So these aren't the only 3 shapes you can draw. You could have drawn a variety of things. Just make sure that you were able to explain to your partner why it was more like A than B. Alright, so what we're going to do now is you should have a baggie with some pictures of different objects. I want you to talk with your partner about how you might sort these pictures into 2 groups. So if I ask you to sort them into 2 groups, what might those 2 groups be? Talk to your partner and then come back and see what I have to say in the video. Alright, you might have said that you might decide to sort the objects into circular or non-circular objects. You may have come up with a lot of other ideas, but we're going to go with this one. So I want you to sort these pictures into 2 groups. One group, circular, the other group, non-circular. So I want you to pause the video and work with your partner to sort the pictures into these 2 categories, and when you're finished, I want you to come back and finish watching the video. We're going to take a look at some pictures together, and we're going to use these pictures to talk about some characteristics of a circle, which we'll add to our list. So the first picture we are going to look at is the clock. So hopefully you decided that the clock was not circular, and the reason that the clock is not a circle is because it has straight edges and vertices. A circle is round and has no corners. So let's go back to our list and let's say that one characteristic of a circle is that it is round and it has no corners. Let's take a look now at the rug. The rug is also something that you should have put in your non-circular categories. And the rug has a few problems. The rug has straight sides, and the rug is taller than it is wide. So a circle, another characteristic of a circle, is that it can't have any straight sides. So no straight sides. Let's take a look at the boiled egg. So the boiled egg you might have put in your non-circular pile. Now the yolk part of the boiled egg actually is pretty circular. This part is pretty circular. But if you look at the outside of the egg, if we're looking at this outside, this is taller than it is wide. So it's not a circle. A circle needs to be the same distance across in every direction. So it has to have the same length, width, height, everything. So same distance in all directions. Now if we look at the pizza, perhaps you put this in your circular category because you thought, well, the pizza is circular, but if we look at this particular pizza stops right here. If we had the whole pizza, that would be a circle, but this isn't quite a circle. It's kind of like this little Pac-Man thing. Here's its eye. So we kind of have this little Pac-Man thing with this opening. So a circle has to be a closed figure. We can't have any part of it that is open. The last thing we're going to look at is the basketball. You may have put the basketball in your circular column because it certainly looks circular in the picture. But if you think about the actual basketball, an actual basketball is something we would call a sphere instead. A basketball is three-dimensional. It doesn't have any flat surface that we could call a circle. So that leads to, to our last characteristic of a circle, which is that it encloses a two-dimensional or 2D region. In other words, it's flat. It's not three-dimensional like a ball or any other kind of sphere. Okay, so at this point I would like you to only look at your circular objects. So put the non-circular objects aside for now, and I want you to put the circular objects in order from the smallest to the largest. Not necessarily the smallest in the picture, but think about what it's representing in real life and put them in order from smallest to largest. Compare with your partner and then perhaps turn around and look at how another set of partners has ordered their circles and discuss why you ordered the circles that way. Now I would like you to take a look at number 5. So select one of the pictures of a circular object and talk with your partner about some ways you could measure the actual size of your circle. Alright, we're going to take a look at this circular figure together. We have here a grill cover, and I want you to think about some of the ways that you might measure this grill. So some of the things you might come up with, you might decide to measure the longest line across the circle. So you might decide to measure this, the longest line across. Perhaps you came up with the idea that you'll start in the middle and measure the distance to the edge. So the distance from the center to the edge. Perhaps you might say, well, we could measure the perimeter around the circle. So we could measure this part of the circle. So you may have said we'd measure the perimeter of the circle. Perhaps some of you came up with the idea of measuring the area of the circle. So maybe you would measure how many square units make up the circle. So if we were to fill the circle with squares, square units, how many would it be? So you might find the area of the circle. Some of you really creative thinkers might have even come up with this. You might have thought, what is the smallest square that would fit outside of a circle? So if we were to trace a square around the outside of the circle, what would be the smallest square we could draw? You might also think, well, what's the largest square you could draw inside the circle? Alright, we're going to look now, we're going to put some names to some of these things that we're talking about. So in your notes, you might have to turn past the next activity to this parts identification section. So if you need to do that, please do. So let's first look at this point in the middle. I think this is going to be fairly obvious. We're going to call that point the center of the circle. So every circle has a center. That point right in the middle is its center. Let's take a look at this description. A blank connects the center to any point on the edge of the circle. So if we look at this red segment connects the center to a point on the edge of the circle. The name for that segment is a radius. A radius connects the center to any point on the edge of the circle. There's an unlimited amount of radii. We call more than one radius a radii. So the plural of radius, whoops, for some reason that wouldn't, is radii. We could draw unlimited radii. So here's another radius, here's another radius, here's another radius. So I have 4 radii drawn on the circle, and I could draw, there's an unlimited amount that could fit inside the circle that I could draw. The next description says a blank passes through the center and connects any 2 points on the edge of the circle. This blue line fits that description. The blue line passes through the center and connects 2 lines or 2 points on the edge of the circle. We call that a diameter. And just like I could draw unlimited radii, I can also draw unlimited diameter. So as long as I start on one end, my line goes exactly through the center and touches the other side. That is a diameter. And then finally we can talk about the distance around the circle, which in the last activity we referred to as the perimeter. So when I'm talking about distance around, I'm talking about if we could measure all of this. And there's a special name for that with circles. We don't typically call it the perimeter of the circle. Instead, we call it the circumference of the circle. Let's take a look now at our picture of the grill again. I'm going to get rid of some of this. So I want you to think about the parts we just talked about, and I want you to think about where would the center of the grill be. So the center would just be a point exactly in the center, just like this. That would be the center of the grill. A radius of the grill, let's keep our same color scheme here, radius would be any line that goes from the center to the outside of the grill, such as this. We could draw one that doesn't match the lines already in the grill. We could draw this. This would be a radius on the grill. The diameter of the grill, this line would make a diameter. It connects a point on the outside, goes through the center to another point on the outside. You might also say that this is a diameter of the grill. And then the circumference of the grill would be the distance around the grill. For your next activity, I want you to take a look at 2.3, measuring circles. So Priya, Han, and May each measured one of the circular objects from earlier. Priya says that the bike wheel is 24 inches, Han says that the yo-yo trick is 24 inches, and May says that the glow necklace is 24 inches. So first, I want you to answer number 1. Do you think that all these circles are the same size? And then secondly, what part of the circle did each person measure? So when Priya said that the bike wheel is 24 inches, what part of the bike wheel was she talking about? And explain your reasoning. So these circles are not likely to be the same size. A bike wheel is not going to be the same distance around as a glow necklace. So the circles are not the same size. And each of them is measuring a different part of the circle. Now, which part of the circle did each person measure? Explain your reasoning. So for Priya, you should have come up with that she was measuring the diameter of the bike wheel. If the radius of the bike wheel was 24 inches, then the diameter would be twice as big. It would be 4 feet across, and that's just too big for a bike wheel. So 24 inches is 2 feet, which is a reasonable length across for a bike wheel. So the diameter is what Priya measured. Han, when he's talking about the yo-yo trick, he probably measured the distance from, as he's spinning the yo-yo, from his hand to the yo-yo. And that distance is likely about 2 feet. So Han was measuring the radius of the yo-yo trick. May, who said that the glow necklace was 24 inches, was probably measuring the circumference or the distance around the glow necklace. For our next activity, I would like you to get a ruler, and you are going to try numbers 1 and 2. You're going to draw and label each circle. So first you're going to draw circle A with a diameter of 6 centimeters. So use your ruler to draw your diameter and then draw the circle. And circle B is going to have a radius of 5 centimeters. Alright, I'm going to attempt this. We're going to say that this diameter that I just drew is 6 centimeters. This is going to be the distance all the way around my circle. So I have to draw a circle with this diameter. Let's see. That's actually a pretty good circle, but that was kind of difficult to draw. You may have come up with the idea of drawing 2 diameters, or maybe even 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 diameters to make it easier to draw the circle around, but that's still kind of tricky to do. Over on this page, I'm going to draw a circle with a radius of 5 centimeters. So I'm going to cheat a little bit and use a line tool. I'm going to say that this is 5 centimeters, and this is the radius of my circle. So my circle needs to go maybe like, ooh, that's a very bad circle. Maybe like that. So it's kind of challenging to draw a circle freehand like that. So there is a tool that we can use, and that tool is called a compass. And I am going to ask you to stop this video, and I want you to watch a video of how to use a compass.